Hello there people, hope you are doing well, and today I'm back with another video. Probably for me it's a little longer awaited video where I wanted to kind of review all the Qaeeds that are there from the house of Lattafa. So in this particular video we're going to review the original Qaeed, the gold flanker. Then we're going to review the Shabab, which is the next one that came after that, and of course we'll do a quick update on the intense one which came recently as well. So we're going to talk about the performance, the projection, and what are the oils of all of that in the next few minutes. You're watching the Perfume Experience. My name is Rodney. Let's get started. So let's start with talking about the gold flanker, which is basically the Qaeed, right? So this was the original one that kind of came out a couple of years back, maybe about 2018 or so. And I think for me this was my first or the second Lattafa that I've kind of got, because whenever you've read any reviews of about top 10 Lattafa fragrances, you always had either Ragba, you had Velvet Mood, and then you also had Honor and Glory, Bade Alud, and then of course there was always Lataffa's Qaeed, right? So this was always a fragrance that I wanted to experiment and try. And I think, if I'm not wrong, this was one of my first oud fragrances, so to say, right? So up until that point of time, I had not really tried any oud, and nonetheless, this is probably a synthetic oud. But let's talk about this particular fragrance and what it is. It is also supposed to be a very beast mode kind of a fragrance, and let's do a couple of sprays just to get a little bit of vibe. And this is a fragrance that I've worn plenty of times, and I always enjoy wearing this particular fragrance. This is a fragrance that's got a nice note of cardamom, a little bit of citrus element, a little bit of cinnamon. It's got saffron, it's got a little bit of rose, it's got vanilla, it's got oud, it's got leather, and all of those vibes. So you kind of get a very nice sweet opening on this particular fragrance because of that cardamom blast that you get, and then it's followed by saffron, which is also a little bit of a sweeter element, and then you get a nice tone of oud and leather in this particular fragrance, which is right there at the background, which gives you a nice punchy effect. And this particular fragrance becomes like this for a whole time. In my opinion, this is more of a very linear fragrance, as it starts like this with the same note, it continues to be this way, and it kind of goes up to about easily about 7 to 8 hours on your skin. Now this is a beast performer as well, so if you put on at least say 6 to 8 sprays, you will get about at least 3 feet of projection, and it will be loud for a really long time. Now this is a kind of a fragrance that's got a typical Middle Eastern vibe to it, and if you are looking forward to trying this particular fragrance, please note that this is not your typical French style of perfumery. This is typical Middle Eastern style of perfumery, where there's a good amount of saffron, oriental spices like cardamom, cinnamon, all of that, and then of course you have leather and oud. The only element is that there's also a little bit of vanilla that's playing in the background, and that way you kind of get a very nice fragrance. However, this is a little sharp in its opening. Okay, it's not a very smooth, well-rounded fragrance. There is a little bit of sharpness there. There's a little bit of slight harshness, I would say. But then on the whole, this is a very nice flanker to have. And if you kind of like loud fragrances that you want to wear for celebrations, some parties, or especially weddings and all of that, you can definitely give this a try. So this is very, very nice that way, and you will get good performance, like I said, for about 7 to 8 hours time. And this particular fragrance, because of that element of cardamom, mostly this is like a cardamom fragrance. The cinnamon note is very light, the saffron note is pretty predominant on this one, and the oud and leather is very well mixed. The oud is very nice, it's very beautiful in terms of its sweetness. It's very mellow, it's not that husky, barnyard, skanking, that kind of oud. It's a very nice oud. In fact, you can say the oud on this is very low, the leather note is more prominent, is what I would say. On the whole, this is a very nice flanker to get, and if you kind of like loud fragrances and you want to experience something typical Middle Eastern, definitely try getting the golden flanker from the house of Lattafa. This is the original Qaeed. Now Qaeed also stands for, I think, Khuda in Arabian, that basically means God, right? So it's probably for somebody who's trying to be a very loud, leader type of a person, or somebody very important. For that type of a person, this is the right kind of fragrance. And just look at the juice color. In fact, all the juice colors are typically the same. It's a good flanker. Some people say that this is an alt of I think Dunhill's Absolute Icon. Okay, some people say this is a alt of Polaris from the house of Issey Miyake. I think it could be mostly could be an Icon alt as well, because the bottle kind of looks like that of the Icon as well, which has got the similar gold colored bottle, but that I think is a little taller. But I think from a note profile, I think this fragrance leans more towards the Polaris. Unfortunately, I don't have both of them, so I can't really compare, but definitely a good fragrance to have if you like a nice sweet saffron, cardamom, oud, a leather kind of a fragrance. Really, really nicely done by Lattafa. You should definitely try this. Next, let's talk about this particular fragrance. This is called the Al Shabab. This is basically it's Qaeed Al Shabab, and this is a green colored flanker similar to that a flanker here, which is of intense. Now this particular fragrance is also a nice one. So this particular fragrance, while this is going for oud theme, this particular fragrance leans towards the leather theme. So that is something that we kind of need to understand, that each of these fragrances are having a particular theme. Now this is one of my favorite fragrances as well, and a lot of people like this particular fragrance. Although you will see less number of posts or less number of reviews about this one, this is really, really a good fragrance. Now this particular fragrance opens up with a lot of osmanthus and yang yang. Osmanthus, for example, is a note that will remind you of apricot, so it's got a little bit of that soapiness, fruitiness into that, and there's yang yang also, which will give you a little bit of citrusy feeling. Then there is of course leather, there is light amber, and then there is oud also on this particular fragrance. So that is the predominant scent profile that you get, but all out and say, I would say this is more of a leather fragrance, although this it's got oud, and the oud and leather is very close on this one. Like I said, this leans towards a little bit of a leather fragrance more than oud. This is a completely leather fragrance altogether. Okay, now this is very, very nice. This has also got good projection. This is a little more smoother compared to this in its opening, and you can see that the quality has kind of improved over a period of time or in this series of flankers. Now the next nice thing is that you will smell a leathery, ambery, woody, that kind of a fragrance with slight animalic note to it. Aside to that, the apricot note is really nice one. So as it goes down into the dry down, you kind of get that apricot feeling, a little like a soapy element that will come, but along with the leather all throughout. Now this particular fragrance is supposed to be a alternate of Guerlain's Pure Intense. Okay, so that is what this particular fragrance is going for. Now that particular fragrance also has got a nice leather note to it, and that's what this particular fragrance is trying to capture. Now this is again a evening wear, a fragrance, somebody who likes to ride, somebody who likes to go on for parties, and you can definitely try this particular fragrance because this is very much masculine. It's very, very much that hardcore gentleman masculine kind of a fragrance. While this has got a little bit of sweet note, this is definitely more ambery, more animalic, and definitely more leathery in terms of its scent profile. Though the apricot note is there, the fruit element is just at the opening, you don't really get a full swing of that in the entirety of this particular fragrance. But as the dry down happens on this particular fragrance, this becomes more nicer, more gentle because of that apricot note, and it's a very beautiful fragrance. You get a good projection on this one for at least about 2 to 3 feet and lasts, at least in my opinion, about 6 to 7 hours. This one lasts a little more longer. This definitely does about 6 to 7 hours time. But on the whole, if you're looking for a very nice leather fragrance, especially that if you like the Guerlain series of leather fragrances, which are straightforward, punchy, right in your face kind of fragrances, especially if you consider Santal Royal, that is a very tobacco fragrance, but it's a very strong, hard, masculine fragrance. Similarly, Pure Intense is a strong leather fragrance. It is something that you will absolutely enjoy for colder times. Definitely summer would not be a good time, but if you're wearing it for indoors, I would say go light on the sprays. 2 to 3 sprays should be good enough for you to get a good lasting on this particular fragrance and a nice vibe at it, right? So this is Lattafa Qaeed Al Shabab. Okay, so this is the second fragrance in this particular list. Alright, so the third fragrance on this list is called the Qaeed Intense. This is the latest fragrance that is there in this series, and I've done a full review of this. And what can I say about this particular fragrance? This is a nice one. This is a pleasant surprise, and it's a very good fragrance. So just to give you a whiff of this is a fragrance that opens with chestnut, it opens with iris, it's got a light amberiness, it's got tobacco, it's got whiskey, and those elements. But this is a very, very nice fragrance because of that beautiful iris note which is there on this particular fragrance, and right at the top this will remind you of a very, very popular fragrance. Now this particular fragrance is going to remind you of Gentleman's Reserve Privé. Now this is a fragrance where there is a little bit of whiskey element and there is amber. In this particular fragrance, when you put it on, right at the top you don't get that whiskey blast so much as such, but you definitely get a good note of iris, and you get a nice coating of that bitter element of that chestnut, and then followed by definitely the cedar element, and all of that expectation from this particular fragrance is bang on. Now because of that iris note, it's a very light fragrance in terms of powdery aromatic vibes. It's also got a little bit of citrus opening right at the top, but because of that powdery element, it becomes a very nice comforting kind of a fragrance. Now while gold is leading towards oud, this is leading towards leather, this is supposed to be a boozy element as such, but I definitely find the boozy element being lesser and more iris dominant, and you can definitely say it's a more mass pleasing fragrance. Compared to all three of them, this is the most smoothest, most well-rounded, nice alternative there is available in terms of the scent profile, and this is a good clone of the Givenchy Reserve Privé as well. I would say about 90-92% is what this particular fragrance goes for, minus the boozy element, which is very dominant in that OG, right? Now, aside to that, this particular fragrance is a little softer in terms of projection. This will do about 2 to 2.5 feet, whereas these two will easily do 3 feet. This will last about 5 to 6 hours on your skin. After the 4th hour mark, it becomes a little more powdery and aromatic that way. While the fragrance leads a lot towards iris, it's a fragrance that will remind you of lavender, nice talcum note, and it's a more mass pleasing. Definitely a good fragrance to wear in the daytime, inside office, inside indoors, or evenings towards parties, date nights, and all of that. You can definitely consider wearing that, right? So on the whole, the three Qaeeds that are there in terms of the series that is there from Lattafa, they're all excellent flankers to have, especially if you're looking at a leather fragrance. You can look at Al Shabab, and then if you're looking at a oud fragrance, you can definitely try this. And if you're looking at a powdery, more boozy kind of a fragrance, you can definitely consider the Lattafa Qaeed Intense, right? So among the three, which is my favorite? I think my go-to favorite would still be the gold one. This is the one that I'm going to keep. The rest, I have a lot of leather fragrances, so I can let go of. I have the original Givenchy Gentleman Reserve as well, so I can let these go as well. But aside to that, it's an excellent line of fragrances, and if you're really looking forward for something more punchier, more stronger, very masculine kind of fragrances that can suit all three occasions in terms of date nights, in terms of parties, in terms of rides or celebrations, you can definitely consider all three of them, right? So let me know which is your favorite among all three of these fragrances. So you're watching the Perfume Experience, and every day you will kind of get a video, either a review or a first impressions or anything as such. I bring in a lot of videos about Middle Eastern houses and Indian oils as well. So let me know your thoughts and likes about what you want to watch next. Hit the subscribe button, like and share. You're watching Perfume Experience. My name is Rodney. Take care until another time. Bye now.